Hi, Julie Jones from SSB Performance, Smarter, Stronger, Better Mindset Training here with this week's Mindset Made Simple Tip of the Week, brought to you by Game Day Sportswear. This week we're talking about, is it my mechanics or what should I really be adjusting? I had the opportunity this past week to go to the batting cages with one of my individual clients who I work with in mental performance. Her dad said that she was struggling a little bit. He didn't want her to go down that rabbit hole of getting into a major slump. So I jumped at the chance to get to go and throw some pitches and hang out at a batting cage and check out her mechanics, which work, by the way, which I'm not surprised. But what I was reminded of is what I talked about a couple weeks ago. This kid is an awesome kid, but she is so plagued by our imaginary audience that it affects everything she does in her performance. You remember that the imaginary audience is when we think that everyone is watching our every move. We're imagining that everyone's attention is on us. I had kids come into camp a couple weeks ago and like, oh, I'm so nervous. And I was thinking, there are 100 kids here. Someone's not watching your every move, but they don't get that. And we don't get that. We walk into a room and two people are talking and they stop when we walk in and we think that they're talking about us. And they may not even realize we walked into the room. There's about a 99% chance that they were not talking about us because we weren't there before. But we have an imaginary audience, and it affects all of us. So, when we have this imaginary audience, we are thinking so much about what Dr. Rob Gilbert, who does the Success Hotline, if you haven't checked that out, there's a link in this article that you can check out every day. He puts up a podcast post, or you can call a phone number and listen to a 3-minute message about mental performance and all kinds of other things. But he talks about what would other people think and what will other people say. That we spend a ton of time worried about these things. And if we're doing that while we're trying to execute, then we will not be able to execute. So, this kid, and all of us at some point or another, deal with the imaginary audience going around, as Ethan Kross, the author of Chatter, says, in our head as the BS radio station that we're all gifted with. Lots of chatter, lots of static, lots of things pulling us away from where we need to be. So we have that. And then we kept talking and I kept looking and watching, and I almost fell into this, but what I realized and what this kid's dad said is he thinks that they tweaked her out of a swing that worked. Because we're constantly thinking about, where do my hands need to be? Do I need to get my foot down? Want to get my elbow in the slot? All the things, the technical things about a swing, and you know what they are for your sport. But we go into this and we over-coach. Instead of letting kids figure out how to drive the ball, we automatically, because we're good intentioned and we're trying to help, and I used to do this too, we are trying to make an adjustment after one ground ball. Particularly now that everybody has an individual coach and someone's standing with them with every pitch, we over-instruct. So, we have this imaginary audience and this BS radio station going on in our head, and then we have our coach, those thoughts in our head, all well-intentioned, and everybody needs a coach. Don't get me wrong, I am not advocating for a lack of instruction. What I'm advocating for is for us to think about what we're thinking about. So we have all these things, our BS radio station, our imaginary audience, and now we have, my hands have to go here, my foot has to go there, I need to do this, I need to do that, and all we really need to be doing is looking at the ball. One thought, one focus. We can only have one thought at a time. And if we're worried about what other people are going to think or say, or if we're worried about whether we're getting our foot down in time, which obviously we need to get our foot down in time, and that takes practice, but when we're in an act of trying to execute, we need to be simplified. So we go through, and I'm throwing a little bit of front toss, and I step out and I watch and I stop. You know what? Stop. No. We don't need to be thinking about mechanics. We need to be thinking about our thinking. But I almost fell into it too as she was driving, and one goes up the middle and then one pulls. She's getting out in front. She's doing all these things. I fell into it as well. But I believe, and I think that you probably believe this too if you really think about it, is that the mistake happens before the touch, before the swing, before the throw, before the shot. The mistake happens in our preparation. The mistake happens as we step in. Are we present? If you listen to Sean Casey, who played for the Cincinnati Reds, works for MLB on TV all the time, he said he went through 8 or 9 things in his after action review when he was thinking about his swing and the result. 8 or 9 things before he got to a mechanical adjustment. What could those be? Was I present? Where was my mind? Where was my focus? Was I worried about the outcome? Was I worried about what other people were thinking? Was I swinging at a good pitch? Was I seeing the ball? All of these things, every single one of these things make a difference on whether or not we are going to be able to execute. You don't want to ask all those questions? Fine. Maybe simple it down to this. Was I where I needed to be to execute? Which means, what was in my head and was I focused? And if you can answer that question, however you answer that question, that can lead you to the next question. Do I need to make a major adjustment? Or did I just not pick a good pitch? Good pitches make good hitters. You all may not be softball or baseball coaches, and I get that, but you know what makes a good player. You know what makes a good touch. You know what makes a good pass, and you also know that prior to the pass, what happens where we are makes a difference on whether or not that is going to be successful. We don't control outcomes. We can make every pitch, we can make every hit, we can make every shot, depending on how we evaluate those things, by giving ourselves a chance to be the best, to be present and focused with one thought. What are we going to let take up that space? That's the question. So after we went through all this and we talked about it, and I said, "Poof, stop." I almost fell into the overcoaching mode. I said, we got to one thing, or one simple series of, 6 or 7 words. Pick a good pitch, see the ball, and swing hard. All of these things we can control, and none of them really have to do with how I'm going to pick the bat up off my shoulder, or how my elbow is going to be in my follow through, or any of those things. And then once I make that plan and I step in and I take my deep breath and I get my focus and I go through my pre-performance routine, I stand there and it's one thing: ball, 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 ball. That's it. And then bye. Or not. Bye. Let it pass you by, or bye-bye. Ball's gone. One thing. We are so pulled by so much. What are other people thinking? If we're thinking about what other people are thinking while we're trying to act, we are not focused on what we need to be focused on. And if we're not focused on driving the ball, or touching the ball, or the basket, or who we need to be defending, what are we focused on? Things that aren't productive. That's what we're focused on. And that's where we go so much of the time. So we've got all these things over here in our own head. Our BS radio station is going full blast in the middle of pressure. And then we've got all these things over here we got to think about so we can execute perfectly. But the truth of it is that the most perfect mechanics will not work if we are not present. They can't. Because everything starts in our thoughts. And if you don't believe that thoughts become things, send me your address. I'll send you a little exercise that will prove it to you. It's going to blow your mind away. So send me your address and I'll send you a little package and show you exactly how your thoughts become things. And after you do that, you will really realize that what we are thinking turns into what we are doing. So, how do we get to that simple focus? We have to have a plan. We need to make sure that we are not overcoaching our kids. Maybe we need to let them answer their own questions. But to keep them reined in to say, was I present? Number one, because if I wasn't, nothing else matters. Let's try it again. What do I need to do to get there? Those are the questions we need to be answering every single time. It's almost a new year, and you need to get your team up and ready for 2023, whatever that looks like for you. Reach out. I would love to work with your team or individual athletes, or work with you individually, or whoever you lead if you're a business leader, because peak performance is important in all realms of life. Shoot me an email, juliej@ssbperformance.com, and send me your address so I can send you this little exercise. I guarantee it's going to make a difference in how you think, because thoughts become things. Manage the moments and have a great week.